Good evening everyone, welcome to the Bus TV together with Wilfredo Samuya and our new host Miss Sean Salinas.
Good day, everyone. Welcome to the number one talk show of the Philippine TV. This is Boss TV, and I am Sean Angela Salinas, your host for tonight.
I am Wilfredo Samuna. I'm your host for tonight. We'll talk about the Chapter 6, the ethical issues and problems which really happens in the business world. We cannot really avoid the problems and challenges in running a business. So for today's episode, our guest will share and elaborate more about these issues and problems.
Let us all welcome our first guest. He is the owner of Ayala Land Corporation, and he has 35,075 employees within the country. Let us all welcome our first guest, Mr. Miko. Good evening, sir. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation. So, for your question, what is employee favoritism and its type?
Employee favoritism. It means that preferring an employee not because he or she is doing his or her best job, but rather because someone who is higher or who is connected to the higher position likes that employee. And this is not healthy for the business or the company kay pwede ni mag-lead og samok and misunderstanding sa uban who are more deserving and capable. Because there are three types of it. Number one, nepotism. Kining mag-hire ta kauban sa atong family, bisag irrelevant sila or dili sila fit for the job ilang experiences and field of interest. Tapos number two, cronyism. Mao ni siya nga bisag dili qualified si friend, gihapon siya kay friend sila ni HR. Sometimes they are more demanding in salary increase, which is not good for the business. Number three, patronage. This is the practice wherein hiring family member or friend kay naapil naman ka sa board of members and you can easy to recommend them. Tapos this is contagious and might be very critical kay most of the time dili hinuon tanan, but when dili agi sa right processing ang ma-hire kay non-performing or let's say not very fit for the job.
Thank you so much, Mr. Miko Padios of Ayala Land Corporation, to share your knowledge about employee favoritism. Our second guest is the owner of JG Summit Holdings. She has 22,894 employees within the country. Let us all welcome Mr. Maria Blase. Good evening, ma'am. We are so glad to have you in our show tonight. So, for your question, ma'am, your topic is all about bribery, gift giving, and bribery. So, can you elaborate more? What is the meaning of gift giving and bribery?
I'm also glad to be here. Gift giving is giving something with value as an act of goodwill, while bribe is also a valuable thing but is given in exchange of or with the expectation of influence and benefits. Both are can be tangible items. Government do not allow accepting of gifts unless it is a thank you gift for accomplishing large projects. And also, given gifts must be approved and recorded.
Another question, there are three-dimensional frameworks. So why do you think that this framework would help to improve a business?
Content, context, and culture are the three-dimensional framework that are used to evaluate whether a gift crosses the line into bribery. In content, the receiver of the gift must be careful to know the appropriateness of the given item. The price of the gift determines the natures of the gift, while context is knowing first the motives behind the gift giving, and if it commits unethical behavior, then it must be stopped. And lastly, the culture that serves as guide in creating boundaries and protocols so that gifts are truly received as gifts.
Our third guest is the owner of Alliance Group of Company. She has 42,055 employees within the country. Please help Ms. Kimberly Akaw. Good evening, ma'am. Welcome to our show. It's nice to have you here. Our second guest will did talk about the bribery, gift giving and bribery. So, for your question, ma'am, what is bribery in the Philippines? Can you elaborate more? What is the meaning of this?
Laws that guide Filipinos against bribery. One is the Article 210 to 212 of the Revised Penal Code, penalizing bribery of public officials. Under this revised penal code are the three kinds of bribery. First is the direct bribery. Direct bribery is committed by a public officer who accepts an offer or promise or receives a gift or present by himself or through another with a view to committing a crime or in consideration of an execution of an act that does not constitute a crime but is unjust, or to refrain from doing something that it is his officially duty to do. Next is the indirect bribery. The penalties of prison correctional in its medium and maximum periods and public censure shall be imposed upon any public officer who shall accept gifts offered to him by reason of his office. And last is the qualified bribery. Qualified bribery is committed by a public officer entrusted with law enforcement who refrain from arresting or prosecuting an offender who has committed a crime punishable by reclusion perpetua or imprisonment of 20 years to 40 years or death in consideration of any offer, promise, gift, or present. Corruption of public officials is the crime committed by the private person who shall have made the offers or promises or given the gifts or present to the public officers as described in the above-mentioned crimes of bribery. So there are other laws that penalize corrupt acts, practices, and these are: first is the Republic Act number 3019 or the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act. It is the main anti-corruption law where it enumerates certain acts of public officer that constitute graft or corrupt practices. Another is the Republic Act 6713 or the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standard for Public Officials and Employees, which prohibits public officials and employees from soliciting or accepting directly or indirectly any gift, favor, entertainment, loan, or anything of monetary value from any person. And lastly is the Republic Act 7080 that defines the crime of plunder as the accumulation of ill-gotten wealth through a combination or series of overt criminal acts in the aggregate amount of 50 million by a public officer or official. The thief of such an amount from the nation is unforgivable criminal, and no person who is capable of such an act has a place in a public office.
Just a follow-up question, ma'am. Among all the kinds of bribery, what are the common bribery in the business?
Among all the kinds of bribery, the most common in business are direct and indirect bribery. Direct bribery is committed by agreeing to commit a crime in consideration of money or receiving money in consideration of doing something or not doing something. So example of this is if a businessman is voluntarily giving money to a public officer. And example of indirect bribery is when Mr. X told the judge that he would give him a money if he will dismiss a case. However, the judge do not have jurisdiction over the case anymore because he had already forwarded it to the affiliated court. Still, he accepted the money. The judge is liable for indirect bribery because it was in consideration of his office.